Let us talk now about Don't Move, man. This one produced by Sam Raimi was the first thing I noticed. I was like, ooh, produced by Sam Raimi. He produced Don't Breathe. So I think Don't Breathe, Don't Move. And there's some similarities in this. It was
Yeah.
directed by a duo, Adam Schindler and Brian Netto, who looked into him just a little bit. And they haven't done a whole hell of a lot, but most of what they have done seems to be in the horror genre. And they're like two lifelong buddies that grew up with each other, and at least one of them, maybe both of them, but the Schindler, he directed an episode of this thing. What was it called? Got it right here. 50 States of Fright, which is an anthology horror series produced by Sam Raimi. So I have to assume Sam Raimi saw that, he liked what he did for his show. Again, 50 States of Fright, which I guess what that show is, they go around each state and they find urban legends that connect to that state, and then they make episodes based on that urban legend. Anyway, what this one is basically another really simple premise where we have this woman, her son died in an accident recently. I get the feeling it was semi-recent, where he fell off this cliff to his death, and now she's went there sometime not too distant past after that, if that's the way to say that. Shortly after that accident, she goes back to the site of the accident, and then she's about to commit suicide and jump off the cliff. This dude comes up, played by, because he's really good. Let's get his name. Played by Finn Whitrock, yeah, who's a regular on American Horror Story. She's played by Kelsey Asbill, who I haven't seen anything that she's done.
Same.
But I think he's pretty terrific in the movie, and she has less to do. But more or less, he talks to her for a minute. He doesn't like try to talk her out of killing herself, but in a way, he kind of does talk her out of killing herself. He leaves, she follows him, and then when they get down to her car or their cars, he walks up and he tases her and he sticks her with this thing that he says is going to make her not be able to move for the next hour. And it was kind of cool. Like when he says that, if you check the time that's left in the movie, there's exactly an hour left. So you're like, oh, okay, she's not moving for the rest of this movie, which is more or less, she does end up moving a little bit and talking a little bit, but she can't speak, she can't move mostly for the rest of the movie. And I thought it was a great setup, like a really great set, super engaging right off the bat. I'm like, oh, this is going to be an entertaining movie. And like I said, an hour left, you're like, now she can't move. Our main character can't move. Like, what the fuck are they going to do? I feel like they did a really good job with it. I feel like it's not like a typical horror movie, but it's a suspense thriller, and it really does a great job of holding that suspense. It's under an hour and a half. All these are short. I think Azrael was like an hour and 25 minutes. But I thought it was really entertaining with some good performances and just fun. Had some cool camera like work. There wasn't like a ton of great shots, but they were doing like a lot of like putting the camera on the rear view mirror and put it on the canoe at one point. There was a lot of cool perspectives for the camera work, but nothing like overly like it didn't look amazing. It's shot at like noon. I hate when movies are shot right in the middle of the day. There's just like the lighting's never going to look good. But I thought it was cool. What I'm really curious what you thought of this one.
No, I gotta agree. I thought, and I Netflix, I realize are up in the ante with. There's something about Netflix films that always kind of feel hollow. Like even if you look at some of their biggest things, like I love the Extraction movies with Chris Hemsworth, but at the end of the day, there's really no story there. It's just a setup of cool ass action scenes. The Gray Man was the Russo brothers and Ryan Gosling, who I love Ryan Gosling. I love the Russo brothers.
He's goddamn Ken, man. I mean, you gotta love him.
Come on now. But that movie, there's something, and that's got Chris Evans in it too, and there's something about that just seems it's cool, but there's nothing really there in a lot of Netflix movies. And I feel like they're starting to be on an uptick and change that, because Rebel Ridge was actually really good. That came out like last month, maybe 2 months ago.
I was tempted to check that out.
Worth it. But this, I think, is in the same vein of that. Like, I noticed that with a lot of Netflix movies, I looked into this too, that a lot of their self-produced content is that they like to have a lot of bland shots. Like they don't want their creatives to go for these interesting camera work, because it doesn't translate well, because they keep in mind that a lot of people watch this content on their phones. So it's like when you've got these epic things going on through a small screen, it can kind of lose interest, and they want people glued to these screens. So it's like the more basic it is, the easier it is to retain people's attention. So a lot
Interesting.
of Netflix content does not have like they have a lot of basic shots because of that. But I think they work well with this movie. Like it's it's not basic in this movie, but I think they're utilizing within the constraints that they're in, the filmmakers, like
Hmm.
because there's like when the camera's like up against the rearview mirror and you're like looking at her pressed up against the window or something. There's a lot of perspectives that kind of make sense in this film.
Right.
Um, and the setup is cool, like it reminded me of Strange Darling. So I guess that's a good. I love that movie. There's that whole cat and mouse thing. It's not
Hmm.
the same thing, but it's definitely done with a different twist here. And the performances. I was really the only dude who's a name is the American Horror Story dude. Like the only one
Yeah.
I've seen and something beyond this. But I gotta say, like all the little minor performances from the cast was
Yeah.
actually
The old man. The old man's terrific. Moray Treadwell.
Maury Treadwell. I like his name.
Yeah, he does have a
That's
cool name.
interesting.
I guess he's in Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest.
No
May-
shit.
Maybe a pirate. Looks like a possible pirate.
But no, I think this is definitely it's a fun time. Like I think that's cool how it worked out. I think all three of these films are kind of like they're just a fun time. Like they're gonna
Yeah,
keep you engaged.
totally. I'd say all of them worth a watch. All of them will be forgotten in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like none of these are going to be movies people are talking about in the future.
But it's something, it's like something engaging, and that's sometimes that's hard to come. They're truly entertaining, and that could be a little hard to come by in
Totally.
this day and age with this oversaturation of content.
And super quick. Just like
Yeah.
where they take each scene. Like, it just builds super organically and super easily for I don't know, anybody that hasn't watched it, like, where they go from there, like, after when she's paralyzed, an old man finds her. So he
Hmm.
picks her up in a wheelbarrow, and he wheels her into his house, and then dude shows up because the woman ends up escaping from the guy, so they get separated, then the dude shows up, and he's like, "We were in a car accident, and my wife, she's catatonic, she can't move," and the guy is like so you've got this 10, 15 minutes where the guy is interviewing him and kind of trying to figure out like, do I trust this guy? And I thought it was
Hmm.
great suspense. And where they go with the fire, he ends up fucking leaving
Bro,
and burning the house and lighting it on fire, and she's left there and she's tapping her finger. Like I thought that was like fucking great suspense. One of the like
no, it was
best
because it's like,
suspense
yo, it's
moments.
like, what is she gonna do? Like she's in
Yeah,
between a rock and a you gonna sit there and be burned? You're gonna take your chances with the psycho who's trying to kill you anyways? Like at least you're gonna buy
right.
yourself time. Like
This is
that
great
was a
dynamic.
yes, yeah. Oh, bro, you know what really fucked me up? Even though well, like the old, I mean, I guess he was kind of apprehensive because he didn't know how to play. It was when he like said, "Yeah, I'll let me get you something," and then he just pops up in behind him in the house.
Yeah, that was
I'm
good.
like, what the fuck? Yeah, and he's like, "I told you to wait outside." He was like, "Oh, I just bumped my head."
Yeah.
But that scene between those two, where he's like you said, he's interviewing him, trying to peg this guy, like, is he on the level? Um, it was, it's like there's a lot of ups and downs in this movie. You're like, oh shit, how's this gonna play out? Which I
Mhm.
appreciate it, and that was one of the highlights.
Totally. And then the guy's wife calls and says, or daughter calls, "Hey, we're gonna come up to the cabin for the week." So we know his wife's gonna come and get involved in it. It was like, now that's a good example of as soon as that happens. Now that I know more about film, I'll look back and this is like a Hitchcock thing where you're
Mhm.
playing with your alliances. Where are you aligned with? And like there's movies where I'll just use this one obviously as the example. We have the kidnapper. We're not on his side. He's a piece of shit. But then
Right.
all of a sudden there'll be moments where it's like, oh no, he's gonna get caught. And I'm just instantly like aligned with him. I was
It's like,
thinking of it as like you ever watching like a basketball game or a football game that you don't give a shit about, and it's like you're just rooting for the team that's down the whole time. Like as soon as
yes,
they take the lead, now I'm rooting for them. That's how
yeah,
I am with these movies. It's just like I don't know. I switch my alliances every couple minutes if I have to. But I feel like
no,
that's the intent of the filmmaker too.
yes, yeah. That's what you got on the money. I think that was they wanted you to kind of be like, you want her to get out of it, but at the same time, it's like you want to see if he's gonna succeed at this. I wish they kind of and once again, it's Netflix films, but that's maybe an element I wish they would kind of explore more was his family dynamic, because we only got the
Mhm.
phone call, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, I know there are serial killers out there who definitely probably do that shit,
Right.
where they love their family but are just
Mhm.
complete pieces of shit. But I don't know that added like a layer. Like, did he had issue? Oh no, what was his trauma thing? Was he got in the
Oh,
car accident?
his girlfriend died. Here's one thing I thought was kind of interesting about it, because in a lot of ways, it's like she can't speak. So
Right.
it's just like Azrael. Like she can't
Yeah.
speak. They don't speak in that movie. So there's something thematically there, but it's like she doesn't want to talk about what happened. He says to her, like, what happened? And she doesn't want to talk about it. And then he says, I don't normally talk about it either. So he says something at one point, like he doesn't want to talk about his trauma. She mentions that. And then when he brings up something to the old man, like, what happened with your wife? He's like, I don't talk about it. I don't like to talk about it. So that's clearly like some running thing about not talking about your trauma, which is probably what the woman needed to do in the first place. Her husband's still alive. Maybe they weren't talking about the incident enough, and that was the whole message behind the whole thing. But there's something there with not sharing your feelings or something.
No, yeah, absolutely. I didn't peep that. I don't know, man. There's an maybe it's because he's just a great actor. Have you seen him in American Horror Story?
Yeah, but I barely remember him. He was in the one with the clown. He's like this rich douchebag, if I remember correctly, but I don't really remember it well.
Yeah. Yeah, he does play. He's usually playing those very douchey characters, which I think that's why it works so well in this. But
Yeah,
what
he's got
for
a
some
douche face. He's got resting douche face.
he does. He looks like a pompous prick. But there was he said when what was it? He said when he said they got in the car accident and his girlfriend was dying. Now this was something I was confused about. Did he her because she was dying
Hmm.
anyways? Like he
Oh, I don't
because
know.
he said, "What did she say to you?" The and she said, "Thank you." Like
Hmm.
that. I don't know. I was just that was a weird moment. I was like, because he said he felt like he was God or he was closer to God. He wanted to be closer to God. And in that moment, he realized he was God.
Oh, you know what? I think you might be right. I vaguely remember that. This was the first one I watched, and I didn't get a chance to watch it
Same.
twice. How the way it ends though, actually having a hard time remembering exactly how it ends. She doesn't kill him, or are we kind of left to believe she's like standing over him with the potential to either kill him or let him die? Like, do we see what happens? I can't remember.
So she ends up getting, they go on the boat and whatever. She gets a gun, pops him. He ends up swimming to shore, and so I had to go. I rewound that part too because I was a little confused. Because I was like, initially I thought she kind of like I guess I don't think I was paying attention because I was like, did she kill him? So I rewound it. So she stands over him, and he's
Mhm.
just coughing up blood, and she just starts walking away. But they don't. She doesn't walk away too far before she stops, and that's when the camera because he's like as she's walking away she kind of steps over him and he's like looking at up as she's walking away and the camera stops and pans on her face and it starts playing the music and cuts as it kind of starts zooming in on her face.
Hmm.
So it's like the movie left open the possibility of him coming back because I was like, all right, so we didn't see him die.
Mhm.
The rules of movies, if we don't see it happen, it really it's hasn't happened yet. And I was like, okay, so if we say we open up with a sequel, she walks off, he's still bleeding to death. She happens to get a hitchhiker, a ride, or something, whatever. And someone comes along the trail or whatever, someone's in a boat, sees him, and he is saved just in the right amount of
Hmm.
time. Maybe we don't continue with her, but he's still like
He'd
protagonist.
be the one you'd want to keep if
Yeah,
you're going to make a franchise out of this. Yeah.
yeah, and see what he goes and does next. We will learn more about his family, the family dynamic and stuff like that.
Mhm.
More about his past. But no, we don't see him die. So I would be. It was kind of like that's why I was like it's kind of like Trap in a sense, where it's like they left it open to explore this world further.
Right, just in case. Just
Yeah,
I don't think they'll revisit Trap because it didn't do as well, but I bet it made a shitload of money, so who fuck that's the thing about Shyamalan, even the movies that aren't great usually make a bunch of money. Like, he made, like,
that's
$400 billion
true.
on Last Airbender that's got, like, a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, so he could pull that off.
Did he?
Yeah, they made a bunch of
Wow.
money. Um, so yeah, so
Rotten
what was so
Tomatoes.
I don't know. Overall, I would say this was my favorite of the three, the most easily recommendable out of all of them. I would recommend all three of these movies to certain people, but I think Don't Move is the best crowd
Yes.
pleaser. It's the one that has the least clear issues. But like what you were saying, this is less hollow feeling than most Netflix movies. But like compare this to like Don't Breathe and Don't Move, and it is like there's a step down. It's more hollow than that. It's less intricate,
Yeah.
less interesting, not as well shot, just not as good and
Yeah.
across the board, but really good. Like I
Yeah.
definitely enjoyed the shit out of this movie. But
I,
what do you get?
I rating.
Yeah, go ahead and rate it, brother.
I give this one. I'll give this one. You know what? Considering that it is a Netflix film that really just kept me, I was like, this is if truly, yeah. I think all these were at the great length, the hour and a half, and it's like
Mhm.
I didn't even notice that it's timed within, like he said, you have an hour, and that's when
Yeah.
it's starting. So that's really cool. I'll give this one a 4, man.
Oh yeah.
It's especially for the no name actors or actors I didn't recognize. I not that you always need big name
Mhm.
actors in roles, but I don't know. I think this was it's not like you said. It's definitely you definitely feel the contrast between this and something like Don't Breathe. But this is, like I said, a step in the right direction for something like Netflix films.
Right,
Where
right.
they always kind of feel hollow. There's something there with this one. It's not completely felt out, I guess, but there's something there for them to do a sequel, and I had a good time watching this.
Right.
Whereas some Netflix films, I'm like, what?
I
Jesus Christ, what is this? I love my man Zack Snyder, but those new movies he did, my man, I was checking the time. But
right.
this one, those are obviously longer. But no, this is a great film. I think you'll definitely be engaged from start to finish with this one. It's fun. Like I think you said it perfectly. You're not going to be talking about this few months from now, but it's something to put on. Something like, let me
Right.
watch something good, be entertained.
Right, and it stayed on the top of Netflix, it's like the number 1 movie on Netflix for like, since it came out. I didn't check in the last couple days,
Respect.
but yeah,
Shout
it's been
out.
doing
Yeah.
good on there. I'm gonna go just below that, a 3.75, but
Yeah.
there's nothing I can say like, "Oh, if they would have done this, it just woulda." It's just this movie had, like, a limit of how great
Yes.
it could be based
Yeah.
on what it was and what the characters were. You remember, like, in Don't Breathe, there was some little bit with, again, she had a son. She's trying to get her son to California. There's this butterfly thing, right? Where she had some connection, some moment with a butterfly that kept coming back. And with this, it's the one, two, it's like this little counting thing that she
Yeah.
did with her son that just felt like a really similar plot mechanic. Nothing negative, but just like, okay, let's add that little thing in here. And Sammy Raimi's like, oh, I know how to do it. Just put yeah, you need a little bit of this in there. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it to anyone. Sal gives it a 3.75. Ro give it a 3.5.